to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton Tonight on TV, radio and online, Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today. I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked. Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing! You see, amazing!
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
Join me, Nana Akue, Saturday and Sunday afternoons on GB News. Expect fiery debate and passionate discussion as me and my panel tackle some of the biggest topics hitting the headlines. It's a place for everyone's opinion. No one gets cancelled, but no one gets an easy ride.
Oh, she's on it today!
Be ready for conversations that are fierce, frank, and of course, fun. Every Saturday and Sunday afternoon from 4 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
And right across the United Kingdom.
You can find us on Sky Channel 512.
Virgin Media Channel 604.
Freesat Channel 216.
Freeview Channel 236.
And YouView Channel 236.
You can also take us with you on DAB Plus Radio.
With the GB News app and at the website gbnews.uk.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good evening, I'm Ray Addison in the GB Newsroom. 2 people have been arrested in connection with the fatal shooting of a woman in Merseyside. 26-year-old Elle Edwards was at the Lighthouse pub on Christmas Eve when she was shot by a gunman. Police say they don't believe she was the intended target. 4 men also received gunshot wounds. A man aged 30 from Tranmere has been arrested on suspicion of murder and attempted murder. A woman aged 19 from Rock Ferry has been arrested on suspicion of conspiracy to murder. A 10th person has died as a result of an explosion at a block of flats in Jersey earlier this month. 73-year-old Kathy McGuinness died in hospital on Christmas Day. The blast, which happened on the 10th of December, destroyed a building in St Helier. An investigation is underway. At least 55 people are believed to have died as a result of a severe Arctic freeze that continues to grip much of the US and Canada. Officials say 25 people have been killed in Buffalo, in New York State, where temperatures dropped as low as -9. Across the US and Canada, thousands of flights have been cancelled and more than 150,000 homes are still without power. The UK's rail networks have been at a standstill today as members of the RMT union held strike action over pay. Hundreds of trains usually run on Boxing Day, but they were all cancelled. 20,000 Eurostar passengers were also forced to make alternative plans as it cancelled services to London, Paris, Brussels and Amsterdam. Boxing Day shoppers may have defied expectations, with early data suggesting that footfall has actually risen this year. Industry analyst Springboard say it may have increased by as much as half when compared to this time in 2021. It follows concerns that the cost of living crisis, coupled with rail strikes, may have kept people at home. And a yellow weather warning is now in place for the north and east of Scotland. The Met Office says more snow is on the way and could last until 10 p.m. on Tuesday. Travel disruption is possible as wintry showers cause patchy ice, mainly on higher routes. Traffic Scotland says gritters are out. Motorists should plan ahead. On TV, online and on DAB+ radio, you're watching GB News. Time now for those headliners.
Good evening and welcome to Headliners. I'm your host, Stephen Allen, and tonight I'm joined by two fantastic comedians, local legend Francis Foster and Sainsbury's local legend Cressida Wetton. Now, let's take a look at tomorrow's front pages before we're getting deeper into the stories. We can start with the Daily Telegraph, with energy companies hoarding customers' billions. Tuesday's Eye, with 2/3 of junior doctors are trying to leave the NHS. The Guardian leads with Revealed, the dire state of the broken rail network. Next, The Independent leads with What does the UK really think about strikes? Let's see what the front page of the Daily Mail... let's jump into the actual newspapers now. What do you think of the front page of the Daily Mail, Francis?
Well, the front page of the Daily Mail leads with two main stories. The main headline is about agencies that are bleeding. Well, they didn't actually go with that Daily Mail. They said something far more evocative, sucking NHS dry. So these are agencies providing staff to the NHS, whether it be nurses and doctors, to the tune, and they're making to the tune of £500 million a year. And so that is money that actually should be kept within the NHS to pay doctors and nurses, particularly at a time where we're facing staff shortages. And they've also gone with the tragic story of Elle Edwards, who was fatally killed in a shooting in a pub. And it very much looks like she had nothing to do with the particular people who did the murders.
Heartbreaking, isn't it? I mean, so this agency... Tell me why I'm stupid with it.
Yeah.
This agency staff situation seems to be there are nurses.
Yes.
There are a vacancy for nurses.
Mm-hmm.
But because they don't have enough nurses, they have to go to an agency that recruits nurses to fill the nurse gaps. What am I missing?
Well, a lot of the time, so I'm a former public sector worker. I was a teacher for many years. When you work within the public sector, you have a huge amount of paperwork. And a lot of the time, agency staff, you just go in, you do your job, and then you leave. And frequently, it's the paperwork, it's being within the local government system or the public sector system that grinds you down because you're within the machine. You have to do lots of pointless paperwork, admin, etc., etc.
So it's harder to hire somebody who's...
Yeah.
Wow.
But again, I look at the amount of money it costs them to go through agencies versus actually just employ staff and think the amount of money you'd save, you could pay for someone to go and do all the admin, let the nurses do the nursing, you'd still have money left over. Again, I read these stories all the time and can't work out why I'm not being a massive idiot.
No, well, absolutely. I mean, I think the problem is you've just hit the nail on the head, is that teachers, nurses, doctors, they can't get on with doing their job because there is a huge amount of red tape surrounding their job. And what you're doing is effectively two jobs. You're doing the job of a nurse, a doctor, or a teacher, and also a job of being an administrational assistant. And it's an impossible job to do.
But presumably if I'm a customer, a client of the NHS, I don't know the difference between an agency staff and a non-agency
One
staff.
looks
Hopefully. Well, one's been on holiday, according to this. So,
yes.
Yeah. One's well rested.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a very real problem. And until we start looking at the way we treat our public sector workers, because a lot of people are focusing on pay, and of course pay is a big thing, particularly for nurses. However, the reality is it's pay and conditions. And a lot of the time, these nurses, they talk about the fact that hospitals are understaffed. So they do their shift, but there is nobody then left to cover them at the end of their shift, so they have to carry on and effectively be unpaid. And it's much easier to come in as agency staff, do your job, so get your timesheet signed, and then leave.
Yeah, I still feel like I'm missing something. Like I could fix this.
I think you just did. I really think you just did.
Cressida, what's going on with the front page of The Guardian?
OK, The Guardian are also leading with the story of Elle Edwards. The other story they've got is revealed the dire state of the broken rail network. So The Guardian have done some looking into this, and they've found that half of the trains from the 15 busiest railway stations in the country are either delayed or disrupted. And it's worse in the Midlands and the North, apparently. So The Guardian, they're blaming privatisation, labour shortages, which obviously have been made a lot worse in the pandemic. And this is all coming today when we've had another strike. Although I got here tonight through the taxi service of my dad. So
nice.
That's pretty good, isn't it? Good old dad.
Was he not on strike?
He wasn't on strike. He wasn't on strike. He doesn't believe in that sort of thing. So today, apparently, there were 15.2 million cars on the road. So that's good, isn't it? Greta Thunberg will be thrilled.
Yeah. I don't know how many is normally on the roads. I mean, I drove in and it didn't look particularly busy.
No, it felt fine. We had no issues. But I guess Boxing Day, they're expecting everybody to be on the sofa, recovering.
Oh, well, pretty much. And the problem is as well with these strikes and with cancelled trains and train companies not being able to find train staff in order to run the trains. You look at a lot of businesses, whether it be restaurants, whether it be cafes, whether it be shops. These businesses have had a terrible time during the pandemic, where they've been pushed to breaking point. And for a lot of these businesses, this is a time where they make money. This is a time where they can actually claw back some much-needed revenue. And because of train delays, because of strikes, they're going to be pushed even further to breaking point.
Absolutely.
It is shocking that half of the trains from the busiest train stations are late. And I thought our trains already had spare time. But, you know, you pull in a train station, you wait for 2 minutes, and you think, this is done so they've fiddled the numbers so that they can't be late. It's easier to, like, the actual journey time is less. You must have noticed.
I don't know.
Every so often when I'm on a train, I just Google Japanese trains just to look. Oh, look at that.
No, I think
at least within 30 seconds.
I think that reflects far more on you being an angry middle-aged bloke. I look at Japanese train timetables. Mate, who does that? Come on.
If it leaves more than 30 seconds late, they've dishonoured the family. That's what I want to live in.
They should commit harikari, absolutely.
Taking it a bit far for my taste. Francis, what's going on the cover of Tuesday's Telegraph?
So the Tuesday's Telegraph leads with a very interesting story, which is about energy companies hoarding customers' billions. And what they're doing is there's lots of customers who are in credit with the energy companies, and they're still being charged regular direct debits, if not higher direct debits, which means these energy companies, during the cost of living crisis, are essentially hoarding capital, and they're taking customers' bank balances into credit when people are struggling more than ever. So it's another example of unethical behaviour by the energy companies. And I'm going to be honest with you, I've always thought of myself as pretty centrist and, you know, I believe in the free market, but looking at these boys, it turns me full Marxist, Stephen. I think we should seize a means of production.
Wow. Francis Foster.
Yeah, exactly. It genuinely makes me angry.
It's a Christmas miracle.
Because there's so many people struggling at the moment, struggling to pay bills, struggling just to make it to the end of the month, that energy companies, particularly when energy bills are going through the roof, this is a scam that they're doing in order to hoard money from people who can't afford it, a lot of them.
That means these huge companies are using us as a source of credit. And I'm presuming they pay no interest on it.
No.
So interest-free credit. I'd love a slice of that, and yet they can do that to us.
Yeah, good work. Well done, The Telegraph.
Have you noticed have you actually ever paid attention to your direct debit payment?
Well, I'm in a slightly different situation because I'm off-grid, so I live on a boat. I live on a narrow boat, so this is all... I've heard about energy bills.
It's difficult to get mains piping into a boat, I'll give you that.
Well, we have coal and gas, so...
How are coal prices these days?
Pretty high, actually, but the government is looking into helping narrowboaters, so we're going to be due some help as well as you guys.
Oh, there you go.
Land people. Yeah.
People on the mainland. Wow. And to the eye, Cressida, what's their front page looking like?
2/3 of junior doctors are trying to leave the NHS, is what they're leading with. Having said that, though, this comes ahead of a poll for ballot for strike action. So it's obviously a big topic at the moment, isn't it? The eye is saying that 65% have actively researched leaving their job. Although, I mean, we do that in jobs, don't we?
Not at GBNews.
Well, not at GBNews, but, you know, apparently you used to have another job, didn't you?
Yes.
Did you ever think about leaving that?
Every single second of my day.
So I've seen you do a lot of material about it. Yeah, so the BMA, the union, are urging ministers to improve the 2% pay offer.
Yep.
I mean, you do want doctors to be paid well, don't you? If you go to the doctors, you're not having your best day if you need to have a doctor pay attention to you, whatever you've got going on.
Mm-hmm.
So you want the system to work well. I mean, the only thing I do struggle with this is junior doctors. I thought the trope, the cliche, was that junior doctors worked too many hours anyway and they were absolutely exhausted. So why didn't they want to leave the NHS when that was... I mean, that's been decades. How has it got that much worse since then?
There's always been a culture within the NHS. I've got family who are doctors who are far more intelligent and academic than I am. But what they say is essentially being a junior doctor is seen as a rite of passage, where you endure the very worst of the NHS. You frequently work in A&E, you work extra long hours, the pay is dreadful. But with the knowledge of once you kind of make it, as it were, whether you go on to be a GP or a consultant, etc., you then have a very nice, very cushy salary.
That, again, doesn't seem like a system that we actually want. You don't want the first point of contact when you're in an emergency to be someone who's absolutely exhausted and thinking, I've just got to get through the hazing period before I have a nice life.
You're making it sound like a rugby tour.
Yes.
If you can get through this, then we'll let you in. Yeah. Wow, OK.
You have to drink a pint of someone's tinkle. That happens in rugby, doesn't it?
Well,
wouldn't know.
We've all been at university with medics, Stephen. They
are?
Yeah.
You're right.
They're animals.
Yeah, you're right. I take it all back.
Yeah.
It is terrifying. That's it for part one. After the break, we have Charles in Charge, serious storms, and the official statistical grand finale for COVID. Stay tuned.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you know, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned.
I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and tune-in apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8".
My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello and welcome back to Headliners with me, Stephen Allen, my two delightful guests, online provocateur Francis Foster and offline provocateur Cressida Wetton. Offline because a houseboat doesn't have the internet yet. There's a long cable that you'd have to fit on there. Well, let's jump into the Telegraph, and there are some serious storms stateside, Cressida.
Absolutely. Worst snowstorm in decades leaves 27 dead in Buffalo and turns city into a war zone. Obviously, it's Christmas. Lots of families have just been in a war zone, but I don't think that's what this is about. So nationally, 55 have already lost their lives, and this is it's likely to slow up a bit in the days to come. But at the moment, this is really serious. They don't actually know how many people have lost their lives at the moment because some of them might still be stuck in cars. The rescue people can't even get to them. People are running out of food, and there's about 12,000 people without any power at the moment in this weather. Well, in that weather. There's even been some reports of looting, which is just... How do they... Once you've stolen this stuff, what do? Go on a getaway plough? I don't know. It just sounds horrendous. There's been 1,200 flights cancelled, 200,000 people in the eastern states without power, and they're not even sending out fire trucks. So this is... We should be grateful for the British weather.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, we have weather, but they have weather.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, and when you think as well, American infrastructure tends to be so much better than ours, particularly when it comes to dealing with weather. Imagine if that actually happened within the UK. It would be the end of the UK.
Right.
It would be the end of the UK as we know it.
Well, apparently these guys are even still driving. Somebody says there's a driving ban. I mean, why they need to have a driving ban, you'd think it would be obvious, but people are still trying to go out in their cars, their regular cars.
Yeah, of course they are. Of course they are.
We don't need a driving ban, do we?
No, the moment there's a light dusting of snow on the ground, we're like, no, thank you, not going anywhere, bye-bye.
Yeah, snow day.
Yeah. Oh, I'll go by train. Nope, they've been cancelled. The wrong type of snowflake, which is, tricky because they're all different.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what makes them beautiful.
Next to the Daily Mail, and it's bad news for data enthusiasts, but good news for everyone else, Francis.
Yeah, absolutely. The UK government will stop publishing, not punishing, I mean, there's a Freudian slip, punishing us with COVID data from January as country moves into the phase of living with the virus. So this is a very good news story that they're no longer going to be publishing COVID data because, quite frankly, I think we're all sick of it. We've all had COVID numerous times now. We know what COVID is. We know what we have to do, and it's just a case of moving on as a society. I don't want to hear about COVID. I don't want to have a discussion about COVID. I don't want anything more to do with COVID. I'm COVIDed out. I don't want to talk about it anymore.
No more lockdowns for you?
No.
Climate lockdowns?
Brilliant. Let's save the planet.
No COVID there.
No, exactly. Exactly.
So I see what you're saying about this, but I saw this news story and thought, yeah, I've not really checked these stats. They're not going to release these stats anymore, but I've not heard of them for at least a year or so.
No, when I read the R rate, I thought, oh, yeah, remember that? How quaint. It was like remembering something during the war. Remember when we used to gather round and watch to see what the R rate was doing?
Yeah.
That was one of those tautology things like pin number and dat tape that annoys pedants like me. R rate, the R number, the number that determines the rate.
Right, noted. Well, not noted, because we won't be looking at this anymore.
That's true. No one needs to know this anymore. There's an annoying fact that gets me thrown out at dinner parties that I can't bring up anymore. Tomorrow's Guardian now, and King Charles' Message has broken modern TV records. He had almost as many viewers as an episode of Blind Date in the 90s. Wow. Who's got this one?
That's me, yeah, that's me. A record 10.6 million viewers watched his speech.
It's a lot these days.
He's killing it.
Yeah, he's smashing it.
But this is really, the story is more about the BBC in general. Apparently 7 of the 10 most watched shows were BBC shows yesterday.
Really?
Yes, they're doing very well. iPlayer's up 30%, apparently. I thought the BBC was dying and going away, but this story is saying otherwise.
Well, I was going to say their Christmas offerings aren't the kind of things that get people riled up. There are certain shows that the BBC can do that will then have people on Twitter saying, oh, it's on the BBC. But a cartoon about a boy and a fox is not going to be the thing that really upsets people.
Strictly Come Dancing. Listen,
But
old
you're
people...
for it or against it?
No, they love it. Old people love that. It's their crack cocaine.
Do you think you've got your eye on doing that one day?
No.
Do you know, I would start watching it if you did. I'd love that.
Yeah, purely for the comedic value. I have the flexibility of a lamppost, so
no. Such low self-esteem. I believe in you.
You've only got that low flexibility now, but you do a few episodes of Strictly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because my old co-host on a different TV show did Strictly this year, and it really brings it home. They're kind of like, wow, we are definitely different levels of fame.
You weren't tempted to go along and...
No, because there is no way I'd ever do anything like Strictly, because I know what my future would be. I'd be the person who gets injured and has to pull out before the first episode.
I'd be in there like a rat up a drain pipe. I would absolutely love to do that.
Yeah, I'm in the same flexibility camp as,
No.
as Francis.
Yeah.
No need for it. Let's move on now to Tuesday's Independent. And a big, jolly fat man could soon return down your chimney and get into your stockings.
Yeah.
Not Santa. Boris is back, Francis.
Yes, he is indeed. The top-level lover is apparently... he could be coming back by next Christmas, According to Nadine Dorries, this is what apparently an ally has said. His critics in the party will realise they are nothing without him. And the former Culture Secretary has warned Rishi that a disastrous poll ratings could see him outed. I think there is a chance if the polls keep sliding, by this time next year, we will see Boris Johnson back in Downing Street. Many of the people who are anti-Boris realise they are nothing without their seat in the House of Commons. Do you know what? It's almost like she fancies him, doesn't she?
It's almost like she's expected to be awarded a peerage as part of his resignation honours list.
Yeah.
Almost.
She loved Boris.
She's a big fan, isn't she?
She is a huge fan of Boris Johnson. The reality is the Conservative Party are a busted flush. They've had, what is it now, 12 years in this country to kind of sort things out. And you look at the state that this country is in, not that I think Labour are particularly any more competent, but at this point, it really is the end for me for a Conservative government. I don't think Boris would do a huge amount to change that. We're busted economically, we're busted in terms of our ideas. It's really tough times for this country. And Rishi has got himself a poison chalice. I was surprised that he wanted to take the job.
What are you going to do, though? I can understand the urge to complain.
Yeah.
When it comes around to actually vote, you're very good at it as well. But when it comes around to actually voting, you're not going to become one of those people who says, well, there's no point voting for any of them. They're all the same these days. And you've just opted out of democracy.
That's a wonderful impersonation.
It's not
Thank
bad,
you.
is it?
Yeah, it's all right. It's all right. I vote SDP. And everyone always laughs at me because they go to me, Francis, but they've got no chance of winning. And of course they don't, but they're the party that best reflects my political views. So I vote for them.
Wow.
I suppose if everyone did that, then our politics might reflect people's actual politics more.
Yes, it's indeed.
Cressida, what's your take on this? Do you reckon there's any chance of Boris coming back?
Hopefully. I mean, he could come back. He's just such a buffoon, isn't he? He's still got to face the Commons privileges investigation, so I don't know whether that's going to thwart him. He would have got away with it if it wasn't for that meddling investigation. Or, I don't know, will he end up on reality TV? Is that possible?
I mean...
Maybe re-releasing Mr Blobby's hit single from the...
Look, he might have made the odd slip-up, but he never asked a homeless person if they work in business.
I mean, the thing is with Boris is at one time he was a brilliant political campaigner. He was what he did in the 2019 general election. He absolutely decimated Labour. Labour got, 19% of the vote, which is the lowest they've had since something like the 1930s. So Boris is a very, very talented politician. I just think Partygate was so toxic. People were so upset, and quite rightly so over COVID. I think he's made himself unelectable, and I think the Conservatives, for the moment, have had their day.
I heard someone saying it's more believable that it could have been a Liz Truss back to Boris flip rather than a Rishi back to Boris because of what happened. We were all slightly, no matter of your political persuasion, you were shocked by how fast things happened this year. I can't believe we've been through so many prime ministers.
So you mean just the number of prime ministers just makes the party seem...
Yeah. The thing is, they're all having to go every fortnight. Why not? Tuesday's Times next, and it looks like Saudi Arabia may not be the enlightened bastion of human rights we thought it was, Cressida.
Yeah, this is horrific. Maids trafficked and sold to wealthy Saudis on black market. So what's astonishing about this is the scale of the problem. So dozens of listings are posted each day by Saudi citizens advertising migrant workers as available to buy or rent as maids, cleaners, nannies and drivers. It's horrible. And it looks like a lot of this is being done on the internet now, so technology is kind of scaling up the problem. It's not a new problem. It's been going on a long time. So recently the Saudi government have claimed that there's going to be reform, but a cynic like yourself, Steve, you might not be convinced by this. And it looks like what's really happening is they're claiming there's going to be all these freedoms for workers. They're going to be able to open a bank account, have access to their own passport, be able to leave the country and change jobs. But in reality, that's people working in the oil and gas industries and actually domestic workers, farmers, drivers. It sounds like they're going to be in the same position. Really, yeah, they don't have access to their own passports.
That is shocking, is it? The fact that they'll promise to give someone the right to access their own passport.
Right, and this is really common. So every seller the Times spoke to admitted withholding their passport. So it's common practice. I mean,
they've always been big on civil rights, those lads.
Well, yes, the UN have tried to draw attention to this in 2020, but the main app that they're using to do this, Haraj, it's still available. So
yeah, it's
that's
actually
odd, isn't it?
It's surprising that the internet doesn't take it down for breaching. I mean, I would have thought. You're right. I don't read all the terms and conditions when I sign up to things online, but I imagine they're against modern slavery.
Well, yes, that's what they're saying. But Google declined to comment, as did the app so far. So
maybe they're not then.
It's almost like Saudi Arabia have a lot of money.
Interesting theory. I like where you're going with this. Well, that's it for part 2. It's in the bag. Coming up, we've got killer volcanoes, mass brawls, and the most dangerous thing of all, white people being hired. We'll catch you in a minute.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Deebs & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
Why not take us home with you by visiting the GB News shop at gbnews.store. You'll find all the official merchandise, a really good present actually for yourself, your friends or your family.
We ship across the UK mainland at no extra cost. GB News, the People's Channel.
Here on GB News Live, we'll be keeping you in the picture, finding out what's happening across the country and finding out why it matters to you. We'll have the facts fast with our team of reporters and specialist correspondents. Wherever it's happening, we'll be there from 12 noon on TV, radio and online. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. We're going to be here for you, our GB News family, to keep you up to date, but also make you smile.
The guy went from puberty to adultery.
And I can't wait to bring a few of my own opinions.
I have no time for cultural totalitarianism.
We'll engage in passionate, but always polite debate, with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Welcome back to Headliners. Let's jump back in with the Daily Mail. And now the NHS are asking, just why did you hire that white person? I thought the same thing when I found out who my guests were tonight. What's going on, Francis?
Well, the NHS bosses want interview panels to justify why they have hired a white person over candidates from ethnic minorities. And I would bet my bottom dollar that if it's a white man, it's even more problematic, because as we all know, white men are disgusting. Now, it's a policy at the Royal Free in North London, requires staff to compile reports justifying why the successful candidate, i.e. a white person, was deemed more suitable. They must write to the Trust's chief exec with evidence on how they scored the non-white applicant. Frustrated staff says the system is a tick box exercise, doesn't sound like the NHS. That is yet another level of bureaucracy. On Saturday, the Mail revealed how the NHS is offering more than £1 million of woke non-jobs, such as head of diversity, etc., etc. It's been in place at the Royal Free NHS Foundation Trust since July 2018, this particular policy, for staff in senior positions. So there we go.
They're not in favour.
Yeah, well, do you know what? There are too many white people on this panel, and obviously I think I'm doing a great job, so one of you should resign, and we need to get an ethnic minority in. And actually, my
mum's... You get to play a card. Oh, yeah, go on.
My mum's Latin American, so I'm ethnic. I'm fine.
I'm female, Steve, so it's not looking good.
I'm not on the panel. You can't vote me off the panel when I'm not on the panel, can I?
Oh, yeah, that sounds like privilege, mate. Get out.
I think it's totally prejudiced. Are you supposed to say non-white now? I thought...
I don't know.
Isn't that defining everybody via? Isn't that white-centric?
Yeah.
I suppose it is, yeah. Or
Yeah.
probably
Technically,
Yeah.
I don't know.
normative.
I just think this is so undermining. If you get hired and if you're a person of colour, which I believe is the right term,
POC.
POC.
That's
thank
how I
you.
like
if
to be
you
called.
Are POC, then don't you think it's totally belittling?
Well, let's just call it what it
Racist?
is. It's racist. It's racist. That's what it is. Look, if you hire someone, you want the best person for the job. If it happens to be a black woman, get the black lady in. If it's a white man, get the white man in. If it's an Asian man, get them in. It doesn't matter. What's important is that you get the best person for the job.
Then we never would have hired you. So with this story, would you be as upset, and I'm detecting some upset, but would you be as upset if it were that regardless of who is hired, you then still have to do a report on why you scored all of the candidates that way? Would that be okay?
Which is what I thought it was at first, until they clearly said.
Do you know what? Here's another thing. There's already too much paperwork in the NHS. There's too much bureaucracy. How about we have less of that and we just have a little bit more faith in our NHS workers for them to hire the right person? Because it doesn't... We all know, like, interviews, they're not particularly great.
Yeah.
You know, they're not particularly accurate. There are people who can smash interviews and be rubbish at the job. And I was one of those people. I used to nail interviews, had it down like that.
Did you go to lots?
Yeah, I went to lots. And the reason I went to lots is because I never lasted that long in one of the jobs.
Fantastic.
Let's move on to Tuesday's Guardian next. And you may have thought that with all the strikes, no one was travelling anywhere. That's not quite correct, is it, Cressida?
It's not. Sadly, 90 people arrived again came across the Channel in small boats on Christmas Day. So we're now way over the 45,000 number that we were about to breach. We've done it. Well done us. Last year it was 29,000, or just under. In 2018, it was just in the hundreds. So this number, I'm sure we all know now, this is just going up and up and up. So the people that arrived just recently, they've been sent to a processing centre. I know that's a problem, isn't it? They're overcrowded at the moment. We've talked about this recently. This is obviously following the deaths that happened on the 14th of September. We know that Rishi's making plans to clear the backlog by the end of next year, but they're still coming. So Suella Braverman's got some plans to restrict graduate visas, so meaning that when students come to the UK, they won't be able to stay afterwards, or it'll be more restricted. And apparently this is a problem where a lot of people are coming, bringing their dependents as students, and then staying.
I think we'll get into that story a bit more later on. This small boat crossings. Do you think there's a chance that we're counting more? In that we're paying so much more attention to it now? Because I always think, how do they know? They don't actually know how many people have attempted to come across and successfully done it without detection.
Yeah.
So this is a number that there's definitely... The real number is bigger than it. But what's the gap? In a year when we pay less attention, that's why in previous years it was so much lower, possibly. But now we really are paying attention to who's trying to make it across that stretch of water. So could part of it not be more attempts, just better counting?
It might well be that, Stephen. We don't know. And obviously that is a problem, and it's very important, whether you're left, whether you're right, that we have a strong immigration system that effectively screens people when they come into this country. I'm particularly looking forward to seeing what sub-Saharan African country Suella Braverman is going to pick that she wants to deport them to. We've already had Rwanda. Maybe we can have, I don't know, Botswana. Let's pick, let's just have a selection of African countries.
You're making it seem more like some sort of TV quiz show, and you might pitch that. It could go Channel 5.
It could go well. Yeah. And let's be honest, it's got more chance of succeeding than the Rwanda plan. So...
Well, let's move on now to the Daily Star, and we get reports of a blood-curdling scream. No, not me accidentally subscribing to Francis's OnlyFans. Much nicer than that. What's the scoop, Francis?
Right, it's... alleged, so this is blood-curdling screams heard from mass brawl at holiday park as Christmas Day ruined. I think the thing that would have ruined your Christmas Day is spending it in a holiday park, but there we go. So, alleged brutal violence at a holiday park, which reportedly required a huge police presence and resulted in families having hastily to leave the Devon site on Christmas Day, because what happened, apparently, was a mass brawl They all got involved because what else are you going to do in a holiday park over Christmas? Police dispatched a helicopter, armed officers and a dog unit to this holiday park in Devon. Some people said the staff of the site were very upset, while others posted and said their Christmas is ruined. And like I said before, they were spending it at a holiday park, so there was no chance of Christmas being successful. So there was a couple of incidents that had taken place. This was my favourite quote of the whole thing. This time of the year is usually very quiet.
With the accent.
Yeah.
I'm from the West Country. This is highly offensive. That's
I
quite
saw
accurate.
one surly-faced yobbo repeatedly booting a full beer can down the street, and he was joined by a group of rowdy-looking lads.
Fair play, mate. That actually was pretty good for the accent. No, that was pretty good. Yeah, I read it and I thought, well, this is a Christmas in the West Country. Of course, we're having a fight now. It's very strange, isn't it? It starts off with just some kids kicking some stuff around, nicking sweets in a shop or something, and then all of a sudden there's a dog unit and it's gone crazy.
You know, look, I spent a lot of my youth in Croydon. That's what we do. That's what it means to be British. We're frustrated, we're angry, we get on the cider.
That's what it is. It's amazing how different this is to... Remember at the end of Carry On films where there'd be a food fight?
Yeah.
This thing in real life, it's not as much fun as what I was led to believe. But instead of just throw a bit of food around, there's kicking and dogs turn up.
Yeah. I'm not clear about whether it was the locals or, as it was a holiday park, was it folks that's not from round here? I think possibly it's locals coming in, maybe... not locals, outsiders coming in.
Yeah,
I don't
outsiders.
Know. Trying to pick up his bird or...
Yeah.
OK. I don't know.
Well, that's it's like a little travel down to that part of the country. We do apologise if you're from that area for any offence caused by those accents, and one of them was real. Tuesday's Mirror next, and there are reports of a terrible force of nature about to erupt. No, it's not Gordon Ramsay watching his kids overcook an omelette. It's something much cooler. Cressida.
In the Mirror, killer volcano Wakari could erupt at any time on larger scale, warns an expert. So I don't know whether this is somebody who's got it in for the New Zealand Tourist Board, but they're telling you that it could be very, very dangerous. Having said that, so in 2019, 22 people died. One lady had burns on 70% of her body. I mean,
wow.
I can't imagine what it must be like being near a volcano erupting. Yeah, horrific. So the experts are telling us this might happen again. But to say they're experts, it is quite vague. It could erupt any time.
Good.
So, really?
Yeah, nothing like being specific, is there?
Well, apparently they haven't been able to monitor it since 2019 because people haven't been able to get to service the seismic stations. Now, I don't know if that's because of COVID. It doesn't say, or is he just stoned? I don't know.
Surely you're isolated if you're walking up to the top of a volcano on your own.
Right. You'd think it would be a good place to hang out. So.
I mean, but to be fair to the seismologists or whatever, it is difficult to predict this stuff, isn't it? Like, we're still waiting for that big one in the San Andreas Fault. Like, we're not that great at working out when tectonic plates are going to shift.
Well, no, I think if you were, you'd move the houses, surely. I mean, I imagine real estate's quite cheap around volcanoes anyway.
So, as somebody who resides in London, maybe that's my only chance of owning property.
Just outside of a volcano.
Just next to a volcano. Get a nice little bed sit.
Well, the next one could be bigger, though. So the alert scale can creep up to alert level 5, although alert level 2 is the highest a volcano can go without erupting. So what happens at 3 and 4? I don't...
No one's paying attention after 3, are they?
No.
It doesn't matter 4 and 5. No one's listening to that.
Yeah, well, I mean, because we're all being turned into Pompeii. Anyway.
Very true. We're all pumice.
Yeah.
Tomorrow's Times next, and Suella is tired of spouses and students. She must have been around my house for Christmas dinner. Francis, what's the story?
So Suella Braverman has drawn... Suella Braverman targets spouses and students and plans to cut immigration. And this is a story that Cressida has previously touched on. Suella Braverman has drawn up a blueprint for reducing immigration that would target foreign students. Doesn't sound great in my voice, does it? Making it harder to bring spouses to the UK and increase the minimum salaries for companies employing skilled workers. And so this is a story. The government have tried to tackle immigration. They're trying to reduce immigration because obviously with Brexit, one of the main reasons why people voted Brexit was to lower immigration because they felt immigration in this country was too high. And this is part of the government's plan to tackle that. Rishi has pledged to reduce overall immigration by the next election, but it's insisted that its priority is tackling the small boats crisis, which has led to 45,000 migrants reaching the UK illegally this year. And the thing is, and this story is very interesting because a lot of these people are foreign students, and actually that is, foreign students are a way in which the university sector actually prop themselves up because they charge far higher fees to the foreign students than they do to the UK-based students. In fact, I think we did a story a couple of weeks ago where there was some university providers, I believe there were medical schools, only taking foreign students, University of Buckingham.
Yeah,
wow.
Which makes sense money-wise, but I wonder if we'll need doctors at any stage.
Well, we'll just get them from abroad, Stephen. That's what we normally do.
Do you think this is an actual plan to cut immigration or a plan to be looking like you're cutting immigration?
Well, it does sound, excuse me, it does sound like it's looking like... I mean, I'm a bit confused because although they are trying to reduce all of the immigration, we also had plans 5 minutes ago to have growth visas to attract more highly skilled people, like your doctors, maybe. So that's a bit confusing, isn't it? So we're cracking down on one hand, but...
Well, technically, if you want to go down the maths route again, the net figure could remain at zero if, for every highly skilled person we attract, we throw out someone else.
Perfect.
So, you know, I'm not trying to solve all the problems, but
Steve Allen for PM.
I think I've just done one.
What we need to do is we need to go down to that holiday park down in the West Country. Just bring smart people in, just kick them out.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Well, I don't understand this. They're saying that if you're going to bring dependents, you've got to prove that you've got an extra £680 per month per dependent. Now, I haven't got any kids, but that sounds quite low to me. What do you think? A couple can come in if they earn, I think it was 18,000. But 18,000 for two people with kids, what?
Yeah. I mean, my little lad's only 9 months, so I thought hopefully he's costing me less than that.
Right, OK.
If not, we need to have a sit down and talk about the figures. He doesn't do much chatting, not yet, but anyway. That's it for part 3. Coming up, we have stay-at-home layabouts, depressing Valentine's days, and incels. Oh, I do miss my university days. We'll see you in a minute.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here. You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing! You see, amazing!
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Join me, Nana Akue, Saturday and Sunday afternoons on GB News. Expect fiery debate and passionate discussion as me and my panel tackle some of the biggest topics hitting the headlines. It's a place for everyone's opinion. No one gets cancelled, but no one gets an easy ride.
Oh, she's on it today!
Be ready for conversations that are fierce, frank, and of course, fun. Every Saturday and Sunday afternoon from 4 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel.
Welcome back to the final part of tonight's headliners. Let's continue with Tuesday's Metro, and it looks like Parliament wasted more than 250 tonnes of food. That's what happens when you don't invite Dan Abbott. Oh, that's harsh. Cressida.
Yeah, that's right. 250 tonnes of food was thrown away by Parliament this year. It's outrageous. They're estimating there was This was roughly the equivalent weight to a Boeing Dreamliner. I assume that's an aeroplane. Right?
It sounds like a stripper, like a male stripper.
I don't know what strip clubs you're going to, Steve. Yeah, so, well, it would have been a massive stripper.
Well, I like them.
But this is terrible because this food's not being donated anywhere. It's being binned. And what's worse is they're serving posh food. So just to give you some ideas, the seasonal fare being served at the moment includes guinea fowl, apricot and cranberry terrine with pickled red cabbage, clementine and sourdough. Although I would say in their defence, food's just posh now, isn't it?
Yeah.
If you go to Pret-a-Manger, then it's probably similar stuff being served. So I don't know if that's fair.
I know what you mean. Everything sounds a bit posh these days, but there aren't that many terrines around.
Well,
in the places
all right, I'll give you that.
McTerrine hasn't been brought out.
And so, yeah, there's a food waste campaigner who's campaigning against it and says it's ridiculous. And to be fair, when there's a cost of living crisis going on, I mean, this is pretty outrageous. And they're saying there's no way this is scraps. This isn't. I mean, I don't know how they're measuring this, but it's over catering is what they're being accused of, which I think it is over catering.
No, it does sound like over catering. Let them eat terrine. That's what I've always said.
And we're paying for this, aren't we, then?
Yeah.
Yes, we are paying for this. And so some people are suggesting that we should be able to go in there, people that need a hot meal should just be able to go into Parliament and wander into the canteen.
I'm guessing a terrine's not hot.
Yeah.
I think it's a terrine.
Yeah,
Okay, a
terrine's cold.
substantial meal.
Yeah. So anybody should just be allowed to wander in. To be fair, they couldn't do a worse job, could they?
No, and I want to know what happens. Like, is there any extra booze lying around? Maybe we could start having booze banks.
Yeah.
I bet you they finish the booze before they leave the
think
food.
there's any left over? Well, if you want to know the response, a UK Parliament spokesperson said the House of Commons and House of Lords catering services take a number of measures to reduce the amount of food waste from our outlets, and none of our waste goes to landfill. So where's it? Compost?
They're messing
Probably
up.
Boris Johnson's waistline. He just sits there eating it all.
You think Boris Johnson's an anti-waste measure?
Yeah.
Interesting.
I mean, yeah, quite literally.
But if they're not putting it in the landfill bin, they're putting it in the recycling and messing the system right up.
Exactly.
Imagine the terrine all over your plastics. You have to wipe them down first. Let's move on now to Tuesday's Times. And, Cressida, there's a champagne shortage threatening Valentine's Day. Now what will you drink alone under the covers?
So here we go. This is a beautifully timed article from the Times, considering it's a cost of living crisis, all about champagne. Hearts may be broken on Valentine's Day as champers' thirst outstrips supplies. With stocks very low, apparently, producers reduced sales by 8.5% in November. So last time he went out on that date and he said he couldn't get you champagne, turns out there may be an excuse for it. The fall was not at all attributable to lack of customers. It's rather that champagne could be absent from the shelves because we don't have enough to sell. So, and a couple of things have been blamed for this. 2020 demand fell because of the COVID crisis, and apparently last year because of mildew and frost. So it's a very interesting story, and in no way has it been a slow news day.
Is it impacting your life then, a shortage of champagne?
No, Lidl's got plenty of red wine, it's fine.
Sweet.
Carry on.
But for those special days, would you accept if a partner wooed you with a cava or a
brut
aspis spumante?
Somebody wooed me. Yeah, no, I've got no. I've got no standards. No, I don't have a palate for champagne. Do you? Have you been to lots of weddings?
Well, it's all right, isn't it? Julie, but
my mum says make sure the first glass is posh, and then after that nobody knows what they're drinking. So just buy a few bottles and then brute the night up.
Yeah, but you can get a lovely bottle of brut. I went round to my uncle's today.
Lovely bottle of brut.
I bought him a lovely bottle of brut, right? And it cost a few quid. And the stink eye I got in return.
Well, because it wasn't shampoo?
Yeah.
Well, if only you'd known...
Yeah, but I said to him, that, my friend, is a quality bottle of brut, and put another £5 on that, and that's champagne.
Did you give him a £5?
Splash it all over.
No, I didn't. I'm prudent with my finances.
Let's move on to the Metro next, and incels are among us. Literally, I can see a couple in the studio now. so harsh.
So, yes.
You tell us about these boys, Francis.
Right, so these are gentlemen who describe themselves as being involuntary celibate. Men on an incel website reveal what they think about women. And they say a number of very awful misogynistic things about women. They give an example of an incel, a particular incel, Jake Davidson, who was a mass shooter who killed 5 people, then shot himself dead in Plymouth in 2021. And it goes into incel culture, and to be fair, it actually demonises incels. Now, and I'll tell you why. On my show, Trigonometry, we actually interviewed a man called Willem Costello, who is an academic at the University of Texas. And he's an expert in incels. And he gave some very, very interesting stats about incels. So a lot of people think that incels are actually right-wing. 45% are actually left-leaning. 17% are not in education or any form of training or employment, so they're neat. 73% are depressed, 67% suffer from anxiety, and 82% have strongly considered suicide. So what you actually have with these men are the vast majority of them are men who see themselves as being unable to have any type of romantic relationship with a woman. They feel that they have been ostracised from dating, and they have created their own communities online. Now, as a result of that, you're always going to get a small minority who say despicable, awful things that are deeply misogynistic. But I don't feel that the answer is to demonise these men, rather to try and help them and try and encourage them to be better. Because it's quite sad, because one of the most beautiful, fulfilling things in life, as you both know, is to have a relationship and to have a partner. It's a really lovely thing.
There is no way they'll find a partner. There's no champagne.
Yeah.
No ability to woo.
This is all part of the Tinder evil, isn't it?
Yeah.
You've probably covered that as well. You know, dating apps are just making all this stuff worse and worse. Because I think there's a lot of loser stuff going on here.
Well, we need to quickly move on to our linked one, really. Our last story is in Tuesday's Daily Star. We just heard about toxic men. Let's hear about how women can be toxic, Cressida.
Well, this wonderful story, as you said, possibly a slow news day. There's a professional stay-at-home daughter who's 26. No, I've got the wrong story. This is the tampon story.
This is the tampon story.
I can tell you, because it shocked me.
The toxic was the pun. And the shock's the pun now as well.
I'm shocked and I'm toxic. I don't know what the story is, but this lady had a tampon inside her for 2 years.
2 years?
2 years.
Yeah.
We all know, I remember from school being taught about toxic shock syndrome. You probably were in the boys' class learning about how to be an incel or whatever. But they were always drilling it into us. You know, don't ever leave a tampon in, especially for 2 years. They specifically said that. So this lady, she's now 22, and for reasons that are beyond me, she's shared this on TikTok, her experience.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not what you do, is it? She said it's not her proudest moment. And she recalled that having the tampon was painful. Having it removed was painful because in the 2 years, I mean, do stop me if you're getting grossed out.
OK, we have to move on. We're not, did it? Well, I'm presuming we find out at the end and eventually it was removed. Spoiler alert. Well, that's it for tonight. Thanks to my brilliant guests, Francis Foster and Cressida Wetton. Headliners will be back tomorrow at 11 p.m. with Simon Evans in the driver's seat with Daniel O'Reilly, and Louis Schaefer will be here, scaring everyone along for the ride. From all of us at GB News, we hope you have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And until tomorrow, enjoy yourself and have a good night.
Looking ahead to tomorrow's weather, and the UK will see a cold and frosty start for many, but turning wetter in the west. Here are the details. A cold and icy start to Tuesday morning across northern Scotland, with sleet and snow showers, turning cloudy as rain and hill snow arrives from the south, turning windy too. A wet morning across Northern Ireland with brisk winds developing. The rain could be heavy at times, leading to some tricky travelling conditions. Cloud amounts increasing through Tuesday morning across northern England, the wind picking up too, icy stretches around first thing as the cold air lingers. A cloudy and damp morning for Wales and the Liverpool Bay Area as rain moves in from the west, the rain turning heavy as the morning progresses. Temperatures rising after a cold start. A patchy frost across the Midlands Tuesday morning, but temperatures quickly rising as clouds spread in from the west. The risk of rain arriving as the morning progresses, with the winds increasing too. A cold and frosty start for many across East Anglia tomorrow morning, with some morning sunshine. Cloud amounts increasing from the west as the morning moves on, with rain arriving later. A chilly start to the day across southern England, with the best of any morning sunshine in the east. Clouds increasing as the morning progresses, turning windy too, with rain later. Wet and windy weather will continue eastwards through the day, with snow falling over Scotland. Temperatures on the mild side for many.
I'm Mark Dolan. Join me at 11 on GB News for Headliners, in which I'll be joined by two of the UK's top comedians discussing tomorrow's papers. If it's an important story, we'll cover it, but we'll have some fun along the way.